Birth rates are down. Home ownership is down. And assessments of optimism among younger Americans are down. There are a lot of reasons why those things are true, but one that is both a cause and an effect is that people are not getting married as much as they used to. Okay, here is the share of U.S. households that are headed by married couples since the Second World War. Fewer than half, down from more than 3/4. The high cost of living, particularly of housing, is a factor, yes. But maybe just as important is that if you do not date, you cannot find a mate. Family researchers asked Americans between the ages of 22 and 35 about their dating lives. Most of them want to get married, and they expect that they will. That's a lot of green. Just 14% were hard no's on wedded bliss. But what are the people who want to get married doing about it? Look at this. Only 30% of these younger single people are, quote, actively dating, which means once a month or more. These folks aren't even in the game, so they can hardly expect to win it. So what, right? Maybe marriage is a thing of the past. Okay, except for that there are high correlations between marriage and contentment, but also earnings. Depending on your educational level, the difference in earnings for married people is anywhere from 4.5% to 32% higher than their single counterparts. Even people who want to get married, though, are having a rough time of it. Our friend and panelist, Shadi Hamid, created something of a sensation online when he shared his own tale of dating woe. Here's what he wrote. The culture says focus on yourself. Build your brand, keep your options open. And so they do, until they look up at 35 or 40 and realize they've optimized everything except the thing that might actually make them happy. I know this because I've lived it. All right, Shadi, did you write? Have you gotten a date since you published this piece?
Actually, a couple people have reached out, like friends who saw the article, and they're like, "Shadi, we have someone in mind for you." But I'm certainly open.
This was not an effort to get a date. We should be clear. That's
look, I wanted to shine a light on what I think is a pretty profound problem, and I think I'm part of the problem myself as someone who would like to get married but hasn't after the age of 40. But the stats are really incredible. That if current trends continue, 1/3 of young adults will not get married and 1/4 won't have kids. And if we do assume, and I think a lot of the data shows this, that marriage leads to greater happiness, that seems to be what the data says, then we're basically conceding that so many Americans will end up being alone, lonely, and not content with their lives. And there's also the birth rate question as well, that for an economy in a country to stay vibrant, you need to actually produce additional generations. And if our population will begin to shrink in the coming decades, that's also a national security problem that we really have. So I think it matters on the personal level. We want people to be happy and to live full lives, but it's also a problem at the political level. And you also don't want to have a lot of disaffected young unmarried men in any society, because they tend to be prone to radicalism and extremism because they're not happy with their own lives.
Dudes are problematic, Tia. The question, though, and I think Shadi raises it, is if you have a generation of young people who are who sort of are giving up on this question and don't do it, isn't it partly that we have not socialized young people to understand that a necessary part of having a sustainable relationship in your adult life is putting yourself out there and taking these risks and doing that stuff?
Yeah, and I think that's where we get into the power of social media, and the young people today know that any mistake, any misstep, any cringe moment could be documented for the world to digest, and that makes them less likely to take risks. And as we all know, dating is risky. You know, you have to risk rejection. You have to risk a bad date. You have to risk, putting yourself out there. And I think for young people, both men and women, that is scary. But I do think it does come back to our men being socialized in a way that is very incompatible a lot of times with the way our young women are socialized, particularly in the modern era, to want emotional intelligence, to want someone who sees them as an equal. And the things that I think women are looking for, a lot of times they're not finding the men who can complement that, and that's a huge barrier.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.